This story happened after my divorce. I thought my marriage to my ex-husband was happy and fulfilling, but his betrayal and infidelity completely destroyed my trust and love. I yearned for a fresh start, but my world collapsed again when my ex-husband secretly took my children away. I searched 4 places for any sign of my children and my ex-husband, even just a glimmer of hope to keep me going, but no matter how hard I tried, I could never find them. My desperation and helplessness tortured me deeply and left me at a loss for words. At a time when I needed help and support the most, I befriended a man. He was a man who was addicted to illegal drugs and often showed up at local bars and nightclubs. I didn't want anything to do with him, but he initiated a conversation with me and gradually became my friend. He told me his own story, and his life was once full of pain and struggle. Like me, he had also gone through the pain of divorce and the loss of a child. Despite our different experiences, we formed a special bond in the face of our shared pain. After I became friends with the man who was addicted to illegal drugs, I became addicted to drugs and began frequenting the local bars. That man became my companion and comfort. He expressed sympathy for my divorce and missing children issues and began to introduce me to different drugs. Initially, I refused his offers, but gradually I began to feel helpless and miserable and began to numb myself with the help of drugs. I met more people in the bar who were also addicted to drugs. We got together and used drugs to escape the difficulties and pain of life. Whenever I felt desperate, drugs became my outlet and antidote. But it turned out that such an antidote only made my situation worse. One night, I was partying with the guy in the bar. I had completely lost control of myself and took a lot of drugs. During that crazy night, my life was in danger. I started to lose consciousness and my whole world became a blur. I felt so much pain that I hoped death would rid me of it. However, I never imagined that this ridiculously crazy night would change my life. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a dark tunnel. There was not a ray of light around me, no sound, just endless nothingness. I felt terrified, and this dark place terrified me beyond belief. I began to look back on my life and saw all the things I had experienced, and I felt the joy and sadness of life. This feeling led me to death again and again, each time being pushed deeper into darkness. I was trapped in a dark, eerie place, and I felt the stench and death in the air. The ground was burning lava, and the temperature was so high that I could barely stand it. I heard the moans and howls of countless people, which came from all directions and made me feel overwhelmed with terror and despair. Fire sometimes flickered out of the darkness, and through it I saw some terrible creatures, writhing and crawling in the corners of the inferno. I walked through a scorched earth and saw countless agonized souls, writhing in agony in the lava, their screams breaking my heart. They were caught by some terrible demon and dragged into the lava with spears or hooks. I saw a woman hanging above the lava, bound to a rack of steel and covered with flames. She screamed, causing me to feel deep sorrow and helplessness. I was chased by all kinds of horrible creatures that roared and screamed, spewing flames and venom from their mouths. I had nowhere to hide but to run as best I could and try to survive. I saw countless broken bones and fractured bodies, which were scattered on the ground, making me feel extremely depressed and scared. This place, I knew, was hell, the habitat of all demons and evil spirits, and I would be trapped here forever. When I thought I could no longer bear the pain of hell, a warm glow suddenly spilled onto my face. I looked up and found a mysterious man in a gorgeous robe appearing in front of me. His gaze was filled with warmth and compassion, as if he could see deep into my heart. He reached out his hand, gently patted my shoulder, and said to me, "Child, you have walked through hell, and now you can return to the sunny world." His voice was soft and soothing, making me feel incredibly warm and comfortable. As he spoke, I suddenly felt my body floating lightly, as if I were floating in the air. I saw my body fade away in the light and then reborn. It all happened so mysteriously and wonderfully that I could not find the right words to describe how I felt. When I arrived at the gates of heaven, I was surrounded by countless shining angels. They welcomed me with soft voices and smiles, making me feel an unparalleled peace and warmth. Heaven was filled with a sense of peace. The whole heaven was illuminated by soft light, without a single pollution or blemish. The sky was blue in color, without a single cloud, and the sunlight was abundant and soft, making people feel very comfortable. There are beautiful views and gorgeous colors, and there is no cold or hot weather. There are many different areas in the paradise, each with its own character and beauty. There was a bright green meadow with all kinds of flowers scattered on it, from blue tumbleweeds to red roses. There are some small streams in the meadow, and some small animals moving around in the meadow. All of them are very friendly and make people feel peaceful and comfortable. There are also many buildings in the paradise, and they are all built with the most beautiful materials. These buildings come in all shapes and sizes, some are palaces, some are gardens, and some are libraries and schools. These buildings are filled with music and singing, which makes people feel very warm and joyful. The people here are very friendly and welcoming. People live there very happily, without pain or disease, and there is no jealousy or hatred among people. All respect and love each other. In heaven, people can commune with God intimately and feel His love and compassion, which makes people feel incredibly happy and joyful. As I was wandering in heaven, I suddenly saw a familiar figure, which was my late grandmother. She was standing in the middle of a sea of beautiful flowers, surrounded by many radiant and shimmering angels flying around her. I went to her side and she turned her head to look at me. At that moment, our eyes met and my heart welled up with infinite emotions and joy. She smiled and said, "My child, you are here." I talked with her for a long time about many things from the past, and she told me that she had been watching and praying for me, hoping that I would have a bright future. I expressed my love and thoughts to her, and she responded with the same sentiments. In this beautiful garden, we felt carefree, without pain, without illness, without separation. I also met other loved ones who had passed away, and we shared our lives together in heaven. We enjoyed the beautiful scenery, the food, the music, and the dancing together. They told me that they were always watching over me, praying for me to get through it, and always sending me love and strength. I saw a man in a white robe walking toward me. He had gentle eyes and looked very friendly. He smiled at me, held out his hand, and welcomed me to heaven. I felt his palm was very warm, as if it could bring me endless comfort and strength. I wanted to kneel down and pay my respects to him, but he pulled me up and told me he didn't need my respects. We sat down and started talking. He asked me about my life, my likes and worries, and I poured everything out to him. He listened attentively and did not interrupt me or criticize me. On the contrary, he comforted me and encouraged me, making me feel very loved and accepted. In our conversation, I felt the warmth and peace of Jesus. His words made me feel very comfortable and relaxed, like a long-lost child finally reuniting with his parents. We discussed many things, including my faith, my family, and my future. He told me that he would always be by my side, protecting me and taking care of me. Finally, he gently told me that it was time to return to Earth. I was surprised and asked, "Why do you want me to go back to Earth? I would rather stay here all the time." Jesus replied, "Your mission is not yet complete, and you have very important work to accomplish on Earth. Your mission is to help others on Earth and bring them hope and love." I thought of my family and friends and others who needed me. I understood Jesus' words and learned that I had to return to Earth to complete my mission. Jesus smiled at me and said, "Don't worry, I will be with you until you complete your mission." I felt warm and comforted, knowing I would not be alone. I told Jesus I was ready to return to Earth and continue my mission. Jesus gave me a hug and told me he would always be watching and blessing me. I felt a strong gravitational force that made me begin to fall downward. I felt my body getting heavier and gradually regained the feeling of my body. I began to hear sounds around me, felt the temperature around me, and my eyes reopened. I slowly found myself back in the human world again, back in my body. This transition was amazing and gave me a deeper understanding of the relationship between the human body and the soul. Although I stayed with the beauty of heaven, I knew I needed to return to Earth. After that moment, I was deeply aware that I needed to make some changes and that I could no longer let my life be ruined. So I began trying to quit illicit drugs and alcohol and slowly regain my physical and mental health and order in my life. I began attending various drug and psychological treatments, learning how to deal with my emotions and stress, and began to take a fresh look at my life. For a long time, I struggled to find my children and my ex-husband, but never received any news. I kept the love and anticipation for my children alive and kept waiting for a miracle to happen. However, even in my darkest days, I never gave up searching and expecting. Years later, I received a social media message from my long-lost children. They found me, and we were finally reunited. In the years since, I have spent every ounce of my being to provide support and love to my children, trying to make them the people they want to be. I am acutely aware of the impact that friend had on my life. I learned from him what not to do and realized the key choices to make in life. It is now clear to me that even in the darkest of times, we cannot lose hope and faith.